I'm with Max Mitcham today. And so a month ago, he showed me his OpenClaw setup,
This is like the mission control is what we call it. I can see all of my different agents that I have.
which helped groom his account to 30K plus followers. And my entire team was sending me the video. They were telling me this was the craziest thing I've seen. Not more than 2 weeks later, Max just did the whole process and said, you know what, I'm not using OpenClaw anymore, or at least not as much. I'm all in on a Hermes Agent. And so I want to know, Max, what did you change in terms of the setup that runs your whole content operation? And also, you also told me that you use Hermes for a lot of other things, including go-to-market, prospecting, and so on. And so I would like to have a behind-the-scenes view of how this whole system operates. Can we talk about all this?
Yeah, I mean, got it. I can't believe it's been 4 weeks. It feels like it was only the day that we chatted. You know, and maybe just a bit of backdrop for people who didn't watch the previous video as well. I'm Max. I'm the founder of Trigify. My journey has always been quite like agentic based. I, was on the NA10 train like 3-4 years ago before it became a big thing. Then it became a big thing, and then I hopped on Cursor. I hopped on Claude Code, and it's been a big journey. And it's been very heavy on OpenClaw recently. If you haven't watched the other video, go watch the other video now. I'm sure we can link it somewhere. And I talk about this, my setup on OpenClaw and how I'm using it and how I'm using it in Discord and all of that fun stuff, basically. But what I started to do is I've actually started to switch and port everything over to a new agentic system, or a harness, we should call it, which is called Hermes. And I'm going to go into the reasons why, basically. But the reason I initially just started testing was pure curiosity. I take like great pride, I guess, and it's probably very similar to the Cold IQ methodology. Is like just go try systems, go try tools. I feel like part of my job living in this space and the world and the era that we are in now is you have to try everything. You have to work out if something is a fad. And just you got your fanboys and your hype boys hyping it up, but really it delivers zero value, or if this thing is going to move the needle. And the first thing that I notice, and a lot of criticism that OpenClaw gets, which is valid criticism, is if you aren't that sophisticated in the kind of technology space, not techie, I think is a way to put it. It breaks a lot. There's a lot of fixing. There's a lot of updates that come out. You have to wire the updates in. It's quite heavy. It's quite a lot of work. And, for a lot of the time, like, you want to keep updating it because new and fun things are coming out, but then it requires, like 2 days of rewiring everything, and it's just labor intensive. And Hermes, straight out the box, is just so easy to do, dude. I've never fixed it at all. So I'm like, first of all, I've recommended it to a lot of people because it is still advanced, but really there's no thinking that you're going to have to do to a great degree if you want to just get surface level value from it. Whereas with OpenClaw, you would. So that's point number one, which was just really nice for me. I didn't have to spend my life debugging OpenClaw. The second point with Hermes is obviously a French word, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I don't know if it's Hermes or Hermes.
I would say Hermes.
Hermes, there we go. Is it has an incredible memory system built into it versus OpenClaw. And what it basically does is it has a self-learning loop baked in. So what that basically means is the more that you use it, yes, the more that it will remember. But because it can remember more, it's going to start to update itself. So it auto-creates skills, it auto-creates memory files, and it auto-updates those skills and those memory files. So like an example is if you kept saying to it, like, you kept working with it with social content, for example, and you kept adding, stats into your first hook line or whatever it is, right? It would start to remember that you want that. It would update its preferences. It would get better. It would work with you without you having to basically say, hey, remember this going forward. So literally the more that you use this thing, the better this thing starts to become. And I think that's really... that's been insane. Like I haven't had to jog its memory on anything. I can say, hey, remember that thing we did last Friday? Let's go pull that up. It has an unbelievable memory system, which I have now taken and made it even better.
Okay. And Max, before we dive deeper into Hermes, one obvious question is, you had a pretty complex setup running on OpenClaw,
Yeah.
And then you obviously went only on Hermes. Let's say you have some people that spent weeks building their own setup. Aren't they just losing weeks just because like it will take similar time building a similar setup with Hermes?
So the answer is no. What you can do is if I was to do this, I don't know if it will do it because I've already set it up. I wonder here if I do this. No, it doesn't do it. So when you first basically do it, it's going to ask you if you want to port your OpenClaw config across. So you basically can take what you've done in OpenClaw and port it across. So absolutely, it's super easy. You haven't wasted anything. The other really cool thing about this is OpenClaw has an MCP. So once you've set up and by the way, I'm not stopping using OpenClaw. I still use OpenClaw. I just have Hermes basically speaking to OpenClaw. So I use OpenClaw. The beauty about OpenClaw is in the name, the claw. It's very, very good if something is heavy on tool calling. So if the job that you're doing requires 20, 30 tools that it's calling and it's quite convoluted like that, then OpenClaw really shines and it's really good. And so I've still been using OpenClaw for systems that are very tool heavy. And Hermes basically is more of the architect. It's cleverer, it's smarter. You don't have to go beat around the bush 20 times with it. It will just get what you want because you're working with it, and therefore it can control OpenClaw as well.
Last time we talked, so you had OpenClaw, which was the architect at the time, and it was orchestrating the 3 agents you had. So you had, I think one was called Rock.
Rox, Taz, and Bella.
Yeah, okay, so we had the 3, and the funny thing it was that I think Bella, or perhaps it was Rox and Taz were wronging. But anyways,
yes,
you had OpenClaw call this, and then I think that what I gathered from last time is you were saying that Codex was the smarter model. You were still using Claude for anything related to copywriting, anything more creative. Now, because you made some small switch, we now have OpenClaw, which is the best at tool calling, and you now have Hermes that has now become the orchestrator. Is that how the whole structure looks like?
Exactly. Hermes is the orchestrator. It does probably 90% of the stuff that I'm doing now. 10% is on OpenClaw because some stuff are a little bit heavy on tool calling. I also don't use Claude anymore, so Anthropic banned you using the max plan. And to be honest, the Opus model's pretty crap now. To be honest, they've tanked it. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but the smartness of it is reduced by 67%. So I actually use, as you can see down here, my Codex plan. So it's the same thing, $200 plan, 5.4. And the nice thing again about Hermes is they've really tuned it to work well. I honestly cannot tell you the difference between Opus 4.6 and 5.4 in this platform. Not at all. So it's been such a seamless transition as well, alongside the fact that everything just works. It has an incredible memory system automatically baked in, and it has a self-improvement skill layer baked in as well. So it's going to get better the more that you use it.
Okay, cool.
So I think what's cool to talk about now, and then I'm going to show you how I've enhanced the content system that I created on OpenClaw, and then how I'm now building out an AI SDR as well. But before I do that, I want to talk about the memory layer. So if you don't follow him on Twitter, you should. There's a chap called Kapathi. He's basically the dude that helped create OpenAI. And he recently posted about how memories and agents work really well with obviously markdown files, so MD files, but very similar to like a Wikipedia style. So if you go to Wikipedia, you've got like docs referencing docs, and it's very like just kind of like this, right? It's just like a file folder system. He basically said that's how he's using agents, and then he's using a tool called Obsidian to help structure that and create a network, like not a neural network, but it kind of looks like a neural network, which is like, okay, if I look at this thing, it's linked to this thing, it's linked to this thing. So it can start to really have a level of context to everything, right? Rather than just being hardcore, just an MD file, everything has some level of interlinking. So if I pull up my Obsidian tool here, This is my agent's memory. There he is, funny enough, Karpathy, funny enough. And so if I clicked on like founder-led content, you can see that founder-led content is linked to, there's a chap up here called Kieran Flanagan, right? He's the CMO or whatever of HubSpot. So it's like drawn a parallel to founder-led content with him. We have signal-based selling. We have stuff around Trigify. We have Claude Code for marketing. If I come over here to Claude Code for marketing, then we have this brand intelligence system. We have founder-led content, obviously, which we were just on. And so you can start to get the gist, right? I go up to Kieran. What's Kieran talking about? Brand intelligence systems. What's brand intelligence systems linked to? It's linked to competitor landscape. It's linked to, and so now, I mean, this is how our brain works, right? We create patterns, we create context, we create relationships to things, and that's basically what we've enabled this agent to do through Obsidian, and Obsidian's totally free as well. So we can leave it. I don't know if you're going to do a doc off this, Mish, but I'll leave a prompt that the users can take and just give to the Hermes agent, which will then follow the setup to create this memory system.
Yeah. So I guess the interesting thing about Obsidian is that it's a note-taking app that works more similarly to a brain. It's like if you go on Notion or Apple Notes, is, as you were mentioning, just like notes after notes. But then to your point, is typically you have a topic and then just connect to other topics. And Obsidian does find the connection on its own. But it's interesting because I guess, for example, like you were talking about founder-led content and it was connecting to signal-based selling. But if you had to rearrange that in a normal folder, it'd be tough because it's like signal-based selling is something you will be talking about, but it's also your product. But it's like, because your product allows to do some signal-based selling. So what should it be? Signal-based selling be something that you use to actually sell, so it should be under sales? Should it be one of your content pillars, so it should be under content? Should it be under product, because this is something you need to improve to continually offer a better version of Trigify? And in this instance, it's like, okay, now actually it connects to all of these things. So when you see it and you focus on that, then you have all of the nodes connected to it. So I really like this sort of way to compartmentalize information.
Do you know what? It's kind of weird, but like every day I obviously sit and just chat to Hermes. Like that's all I do. I just sit here and I use the Warp browser, and you can see I've got all these different things open. I just sit and chat to it all day, doing all my tasks basically through it. And obviously I do come here in the end of the day because I have a look and I'm like, oh, it's like weirdly quite satisfying watching this memory grow.
Oh, it looks nice. I like it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm growing like a little baby in here. Like, it's nice.
Yeah.
This then brings us on to, I think, like the content piece, right? And then I'm going to talk about the AI SDR piece. But before I had the agents helping me create content, run the research, do all of that, things like that. That hasn't really changed. In fact, let me see if I can get Hermes to explain. Can you explain for me details on the self-learning and experiments that we run?
And one thing while we see this prompt being written out is when it comes to installing Hermes Agent, it's very easy to do, but I see that you made a video about this.
Yeah, I've made a video about this. So again, what we can do is link that video. Super simple to do. I talk about the setup there, how I'm also like using Claude Code, how I'm using various different things. So we can link that there. And what's interesting here is if we watch this work, you can see that it's looking through the brain as we speak, right? Like it's looking at different things here. You can see this wiki brain. This is basically looking at all the different connections to understand how is it working, remembering what's going on, things like that, essentially. So here we go. Let's see what this says, and I can maybe add some flavor to it. So our social content loop is basically, we post, right? So we post on LinkedIn typically as like the source of the post. We watch what gets traction and who engages, and we feed those lessons back into the next post. So basically, in layman's terms, what Hermes is doing here is we have 1.1, we have loads of different social listening searches set up on Trigify, which are monitoring just for two things. It's monitoring trends. So what's like trending on Twitter, what's trending on YouTube, what's trending on LinkedIn, what's gaining steam, because that gives us content inspiration to talk about, right? So that's point one. But point two, it's also analyzing from all of that stuff that it's looking at, what's working, what's not, content style, hook strategies, all of those stuff. And it's creating at this point a hypothesis on how the algorithms are working and how you can connect with your buyer persona based on looking at the wider web. So then it creates experiments, right? It's doing it on its own. It's creating experiments that it wants to run. So that when I go to it and say, hey, I want to do a post on XYZ, it's like, okay, that's cool. I'm going to try this experiment with Max now. So I'm going to say, okay, hey, we're going to run this experiment. And this experiment might be like, we're going to use a stat in the hook, for example, or the post is going to be under 200 characters for LinkedIn, or it's going to be a 3,000, like, you know what I mean? Like it's going to play and it's going to try different things. And depending on what works, what doesn't with the experiments, it's then going to start to bake into its belief system. That belief system can change based on continuing experiments. So it's a forever going loop that is going to continue to get better as time goes on. The more I post, the better this whole freaking thing starts to become, basically.
Yeah.
It then obviously creates content for me. So LinkedIn, I tend to create the content for, or I tend to guide it. I normally have the ideas. And then for everything else, Substack, X, YouTube, it comes up with the ideas. It obviously applies the experiments. It creates the post. It comes to me with approval from the post, things like that.
We discussed it last time, but because you say it's creating the content for you, based on what does it create the content? What does it have access to in general?
Yeah, so it's got like this whole like context engine, this whole context layer. So Trigify is obviously massive for this, and this is obviously I'm living and breathing our product, right? But like I am giving it access to social media, and I think about it like this: we've got like LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and Threads, which are more like signal-based platforms. Like if everyone can park their head on signals from a sales perspective and just think of it like this, like a signal is, in marketing terms, it's like what's trending, what's working, and what can we draw conclusions on, right? So it's looking for signals there. Once it has a signal, for example, it might be Hermes for like SEO is trending right now, like people using it for SEO. It then is going to go look up longer form content to create an understanding. So it then goes to Substack, it then goes to podcasts, it then goes to YouTube, where it can pull from those topics and understanding. So it creates this this understanding layer essentially. Yeah. From there, it then can start to draft content for me based on its knowledge on everything that's currently happening based on the signal and its understanding of it. Not only that, it's connected through Firefly, so it has all of my sales calls. It's connected to Granola, so it has all of my internal calls that I do with Slack. It's connected to my email systems. It's connected to all of my internal like products that I've created around like how is the business doing. It's connected to everything. So it's a living, breathing microorganism, so to speak, because the brain system is so strong. And that's why I started with this today, because the more that I add to it, this better this whole thing basically becomes. Like it produced a Substack post for me the other day.
Yeah.
And I totally forgot that I did these things. And it was like, the other week I did blah, blah, blah. I'm like, holy shit. So we did. Like, that's awesome. Like that it's
so it actually reminds you of stuff that you've done and you forgot.
Yeah. Because then when it's creating the content, it's using to back a point up. It's like saying, I did this. And I'm like, shit, I did do that, didn't I? Like I totally forgot. So,
I see.
Nothing's made up. It's all based on learnings and behaviors, or if it's trying to prove a point, it's a statement. It doesn't need to back anything up potentially.
Yeah. And to make sure I understand correctly, it's like you have a mix of external sources. So it's like Trigify monitors social media. Obviously, like first thing you look at is the current trends. So you're looking at X because X tends to be faster at any trend. And it's like, okay, but it's interesting for you to know that Hermes Agent is a trendy topic. Say if you wanted your agent to make content around that. But the problem with X is that it usually lacks depth, and so because it lacks depth, the next step is looking at longer form content. So here you're looking at YouTube, Substack, all of these things, And so like connecting these two things means that now you have enough information for your agent to make in-depth content around a trendy topic. But then I guess the last piece that's missing, which is connected with your whole system, is the actual internal context, right? Because it's one thing to say, hey, here's how to do SEO with Hermes Agents. It's another thing to say, here's how we use Hermes Agents to deploy 4 pages that ranked after 1 week on Google, right? And so this is where the fact that the system is connected to your call transcripts, perhaps your Slack, and like all of your internal knowledge comes to friction, because then now we have like everything we need. It's like we have the freshness of hype topics, we have the depth of how we should talk about this, plus we have the internal context, which makes it a how like an internal experience versus making it just a external experience where you jump on anything that's trendy. Like, would you say that's a good summary for how people should
exactly
build their own system? Okay.
Yeah, it's exactly great. You've got the external information that you need to provide it. So social media, news, data, and you've got 2 layers. You've got a signal layer, which is like something's going on, and then you need to create the understanding layer, which is why it goes to these longer form contents to understand. And then you got internal data, like you said. So it could be endless there, but you need to think about what you could connect to it to give it context. Like, for example, whether I take stuff like context aside, I'm building this AI SDR, which we'll go on to talk about. It's like, who do I need to reach out to, right? Like, who is Trigify's ICP? I don't want to fucking explain that to this thing. Like, I want it to know. And it freaking knows, like, to a beyond belief, because it has access to a Stripe, it has access to user base. Like, it knows more than I do, because like it can process the information better than I can, and it can work across everything. And so therefore, like, it has to be better than me. I need it to be better than me. Otherwise I find it's a waste of time and I don't want to use it. And so then you plug it into all this internal information. You combine that with external information. So even if I'm working on like a product roadmap strategy with it, it's being like, no, listen, actually, I remember when we fucking looked at this person, he was posting about that. That's really interesting. We could take information from that. So it's not even good for content. It's come to me sometimes with ideas, because it's like obviously monitoring, and it's like, hey, someone was doing something really cool with Hermes about getting like the AI SEO. And so what it's done is it's gone and helped and refined the blog strategy that we created through OpenClaw based on what it's seen over there, and it's updated itself and then moved on. And so again, you got to think with these agents is like, where can you connect it? What information can you give to it? How can you security proof that? That's one thing. And then how can you create the memory system so that it doesn't overload it, right? And it cleans and updates and things like that, which is what we've done inside of here.
Cool.
Good example, right? So this week, I actually set up, I wonder if I can find it in here. Oh yeah, here we go. So one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to start being better on YouTube. It was one thing to create the strategy, or sorry, the topics for me to film. It was another thing like working out like, okay, how do we actually make YouTube work, right? And so what it's doing here, and this is quite a fun like micro use case on the content side of things, is it's got initially Trigify is monitoring for like key creators in the category. So it's monitoring people like Alex Finn, Nate Herc, Matthew M. Berman. It's monitoring content around Hermes, OpenClaw, Claw Code on YouTube. And it's doing a market review, a weekly review of what the creators are talking about, how they're structuring their post. Again, all the stuff that we've kind of already mentioned, hooks, things like that. Again, understanding what's working. It then reviews all of that into this like intelligence skill here. So this is analyzing, as it puts here, it's analyzing hooks, titles, chapters, descriptions, cadence, topic skills in their descriptions, their bio, all of that, basically, stuff like that. And then it stores it over in the brain, and it creates patterns. So one thing that's really key is you don't just want to update. Like maybe it sees, Mish did a post over here and it's like, it popped off. It's like, it doesn't just want to store everything for the sake of storing it. It needs to monitor patterns, and then the patterns will become a belief, because otherwise it's going to be messy, right? Like if it only requires one post that's done really well, or, everyone's doing this thing in their description in YouTube and it tries that, like it's not That's just could be fluke, for example. So it needs to spot patterns. And so once it does, it basically then starts to send me a weekly channel review. So this is like the coolest part. So it analyzes all of my YouTube videos every week based on its belief systems, based on all the intelligence that it's gathered through these different systems. And it sends me a little Slack message that says, hey, dude, you know, we've been running these tests on titles, on thumbnails, on descriptions. I think it's time to update these ones to these and try out these new strategies. So it's updating my thumbnails, it's updating my descriptions, it's updating my titles, it's changing all of that based on the connection that we have to YouTube and the analytics. So for example, it's basically like vidIQ, which is like a YouTube creator tool on steroids, automatically running everything for me. I just sit on Slack and say approved. And it does everything for me. And it's like the last like 2 videos that I've done since I put this thing into production has just, it's been like 10x, maybe exaggeration. It's like 2x, 3x better than any other video that I've basically produced.
I see on vidIQ that the one you published 5 days ago has a 26x in comparison to your usual performance.
Yeah, exactly. These are the last 2 that I've done since doing it. Obviously, this one is 2 days ago, 149. This one, 767. Like this one was fucking amazing. Like this one, it came up with the script. It gave me the script. It did the thumbnail. It did the description. All I had to do was film it. And it's been, you know, my best performing.
That's crazy because I watched this entire video and I was like, I thought, how much time did it take him to create this whole thing? Because it's 22-minute videos, but she really went in depth, showcasing the entire agent system. And it was so well structured. I thought that you actually spent a lot of human time.
No, dude.
Or like had a good script writer, but you're actually saying that this was completely AI generated. I mean, like the script was completely AI generated.
Everything was AI generated. The only thing that wasn't was me filming. And obviously what I'm talking about is what I'm doing. Like Hermes knows for YouTube, I don't like to talk about things that I don't know. Like I like to talk about things that I'm doing because I have good knowledge and I can riff. If it gives me a structure and a bare bones script, I don't like word for word. I can't do that. Yeah. So it knows, okay, like get him talking about what he likes to talk about, follow this structure, follow this initial hook pattern, because I suck at that part, which is like, hey, watch this video and you're going to learn blah, blah, blah. Like I'm not used to that style. So it came up with that for me. It generated this thumbnail for me as well. It used Gemini, the Banana 2 model. It's that way. It kind of doesn't look that like, it looks a little bit off for me, but we'll let it slide. I look maybe a little bit skinnier there. It's doing me a good justice. So that's like an example, right, of like how, again, just reiterating it back to simplicity here, the knowledge system, the self-learning cron jobs that I've been setting up, rule systems that have been setting in place by like, hey, don't always update. Like we want, something to hit a certain threshold when that then becomes your belief system, things like that. That is basically what has enabled this so far for me. And so far it's working incredibly well. The copywriting that it's doing is just incredible. Like the ideas that it's coming up with, it's so good. And like my team are now using it. And it's generally the first time that I look at like some of the content that it's producing, and because I've had agents like this do it before for me, and I'm like, shit, that's a great fucking idea. I really like that idea.
And one question I have is, obviously here I see that on YouTube it outperforms what you did before. I wonder, are you seeing the same thing on other platforms such as LinkedIn or X?
Yeah, exactly. LinkedIn has, we've had some great posts there recently. LinkedIn's a hard one, right? Because like their algorithm's like wacky doodle at the moment. Like some days it's up, some days it's down. So I actually find it's quite hard to run tests. So what I've told it to do there is we pull the engagement naturally. And I want to understand, is the buyer persona improving? I don't really care about engagement stats on LinkedIn because I mean, with LinkedIn, one day you can have so many like likes and the next day they've just like absolutely slammed your like impressions. It's like so up and down. It's not consistent. So it looks at a different kind of threshold there. X, it's drastically improved. Substack, I've added about 80 subscribers since starting doing it with OpenClaw and obviously Hermes. And I've gone way more consistent over there. We're getting close to like 1,000 subscribers on Substack, and really good content. Like the writing, listen, I'm heavily dyslexic, by the way, so I would never be fucking good at writing any of this stuff. I can do videos like this, and that's why my LinkedIn content is always purely videos. My old strategy for content was create a video, take the transcript, chuck the transcript into AI, and say, turn that into a post for me. And I still do that, basically. I just now have the ideas. But I could never articulate things. And so this is why it's been a massive unlock for like longer form content for me around Substack, because it can take what I'm doing and extrapolate that into a longer piece of content for me. Going on to the AI SDR, it follows like a very similar concept. So like this is actually what I've been working, this is all live stuff that I've been working on it today. Like I literally just started building it, funny enough, today here. And the way that like we're thinking about it is, hold on, let me just say, can you share the doc with me?
Sorry, for context for the people who don't know what is an AI SDR, because it's like, some people might not know, and AI SDR is the AI version of a SDR. So that's essentially someone who is supposed to generate cold leads for their company. So yeah, AI SDR would be like, we have some big orgs such as Artisan, 11x, and other companies that provide this software at scale. But I think that the most efficient AI SDR you could build would be one that's really custom to what you do.
A lot of good tools out there that do this. I personally never like played with them. You're probably way more the man to ask on tools for AI SDRs and things like that. So I guess why the question is, why have I decided to build my own? Well, like I think like you said, like sometimes if you know how you can do it, I always think, building your own stuff is you get a lot of power and flexibility with that. You have to ask sometimes, is the juice worth the squeeze? And that's a question that we all see. But like this is going to take me around 2 days to build. And I'm also building 3 other things when I'm doing it. So it's not actually much effort for me to extrapolate this out. But I'll show you how this is working, or how I'm thinking of having. I haven't finished it, right? Yeah. So, maybe we can do another one once I finish it and we can see the results.
Okay.
But I've broken it down into signals initially, right? And if I've broken signals down into, first of all, social, naturally, because that's what we do. And so here I'm using, again, Trigify, and I don't want to plug Trigify too much, but we're monitoring 4 different social media sites. So Substack, X, Hacker News, and LinkedIn. And these are the typical signals that we're looking for me. So I'm looking for, like, are people engaging with certain topics? Are they engaging with competitors? Are they posting about certain topics? Funding round announcements. Like, it's so funny. Everyone like goes to like Crunchbase for stuff like that. But do you know what? Like, it comes out on X way before anywhere else. In fact, there's an account somewhere, I can't remember the name of it, who leaks like funding rounds that are in the process of happening. Yeah, I'm gonna I'll try and get the name that we can share the link. But it's wild. It's like incredibly accurate. I don't know. It's an anonymous profile as well. I don't know who it is. Yeah.
Information though.
Yeah, I don't know how he's getting it. I don't know. It might not be he. It might be her. I don't know how they're getting it. But yeah, like funding rounds come out on Twitter first, typically anywhere before anyone else. But you can also get that from LinkedIn. You can also get that from Substack. Changing roles, obviously a very popular one. Changing companies. Company headcount increase, job count increase. Maybe they're starting new initiatives that are relevant to what Trigify could potentially offer. So these are all the signals. So everything that we're doing is typically signal-based selling. Been a big believer of that even prior to starting Trigify, and tends to just work incredibly well.
Yeah.
So then we also have some internal signals. So I've built an internal system, like it's an internal reporting system. It's an internal signal system. So anyone who signs up but then drops off in our onboarding process, I'm capturing them. Anyone who is spending over a certain amount. So here I'm like combining like Common Room and Pocus, who got acquired by Apollo, together in like one kind of like system here. Spend, upsell. And by the way, who's helping me do all of this? Hermes, right? Like Hermes is building this out. It's using Claude code to create the system. So it sends tasks to Claude code to create that. And then we've got some hiring signals as well. Of course, we've got to have some hiring signals. That's just the OG. So what then happens with this is these are the initial signals that Hermes is basically setting up through APIs. And here we're going to be using cron jobs massively. So the initial one is it's tapping into all these data sources to understand the signals, either from an ABM perspective or a non-ABM perspective, because I can work on both because our TAM's quite large, but you can do this for either or. And it's working with the APIs, querying them to find if there's any signals that are irrelevant or not. And so the cron basically looks like this in simple terms. It's like query the API, use Hermes to validate if the signal is relevant to Trigify based on the persona. I think like it created, try and skip through this. Yeah, here, like it's quite funny. So I talked about like it needs to know my ICP, and like it literally just came up as like, okay, option A, B2B SaaS, agencies, service businesses, and founder-led GTM. Like I didn't prompt that to know, and I'm just like, that's like so good on who would get value from our product.
And do you know where it took the information from?
It's brain. No, it's just from listening to all the conversations that I've had with clients, looking at our customer base on Stripe. So with the brain, and people will see because we'll give the prompt, at the end of each day, it has a cron that runs over all the information that it's gathered for the day, where it contextualizes that information and then adds it to Obsidian. So it's stored this at some place and some time, it's read this information and was like, okay, hey, these are the good people that we should be reaching out to, essentially. And then it's come up with that.
The cool thing is that you could even ask if you wanted to, as in like, how did you come up with these personas? And it would tell you.
And it would tell me. Yeah. Exactly. It would tell me. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it does that system and it checks to see if they're a good lead. And then it just follows the process from there. If we go back to...
And by the way, how did you design these diagrams?
Hermes designs them for me, mate.
Yeah, because actually...
He uses Excelsior Draw to create them. Yeah. He's created a whole Notion doc for me as well, which actually, screw it, I can share the Notion doc on how this AI SDR is working.
Do you use some of the diagrams to post on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you'll see them on my LinkedIn post. You'll see them in my Substacks. It creates them to add value. You'll see them on my YouTube as well. I think I did a YouTube video which contained the diagram, because I think for a lot of people, the challenge with what we're looking at here is it's not clay, it's not NA10. There's nothing that I can see that's happening, and therefore like it's really hard to like articulate this to people.
Yeah.
But really what we're looking at is, yes, it's a version of clay. Yes, it's a version of NA10. Yes, it's a version of all of these systems. The difference here is that Hermes has the memory, right? So like when it prospects and it finds someone posting about like intent data and it's looking for it, it then can go and use the API to get their information. It then can go and use something like Lead Magic or Surf or whatever you want to use to collect the email address. It then can send this data across to Instantly, Plus Vibe, whatever, again, you're using. But the key part is when it needs to create the copy, when it needs to understand if that is ICP, when it needs to understand the context around that person, it's going to have that because it has all of this. So even when it's in the middle of a cron and it's deciding, do I need to route this to max because this is maybe a really hot lead? Like this could be like, you know, whomever it is checking out our profile, like gongs come in, right? And it knows that it routes enterprise clients to me for approval. It doesn't reach out to them automatically. If it's not, it has all of this memory that we're looking at here to create, like it's going to write a way better email than anything that I've done before on the value that they can get to it. Now, of course, the work that I'm doing with it is not on the value that Trigify provides because it's got that. It's the value now on what does good copywriting look like.
Word.
That's very simple. I tell it to go look at Alex Vacker and Mish, right? Like go study their LinkedIn page and sap that knowledge like you've never done before. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's very easy for me to get access to this information. And so then it will have a context again in here called cold email on what does that good like, on what does a good LinkedIn message look like. And I think this is incredibly powerful. Again, I've never used an AI SDR. I'm not saying don't use them because I still think they're very valuable for people who don't want to go to this length. But I don't think you're ever going to get to this knowledge context. And so therefore it will always lack slightly on certain elements in comparison to if you want to spend the time to be this anal and do this basically.
Yeah. I guess it's really a case of there are some things that work, and then there are some things that work best for you. And here it's like, obviously it's trained on so much on your data, and it's custom, right? It's there are some good AI SDRs. For example, I was actually very surprised with the capabilities of Artisan, but the issue is the granularity of information you can feed it isn't the same as what you build, because you actually pick literally like everything you wanna feed it, and there's like a huge, again, there is a gap, because if you were using external AI SDR, there are some information that you wouldn't be able to provide. It wouldn't be in real time. It wouldn't be able to auto update in the exact same way. So these solutions are good if you have the technical chops and the time to build something like this. Then I'm pretty sure it would outperform most of these platforms.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I love the guys at Artisan. I think it's a cool tool. You got to do what's right for you. So again, like you said, if you have the time, if you want to like nerd out on these things, if you want something that's a little bit custom, then, listen, I also don't know if this works. So I don't want to like say that this is the gospel. Let's do another video in like 4 weeks time or something, and we'll see if we can report back on this.
But how far ahead are you with the system? Because you described the first steps, so like the scenario capture. Then we talk about like how why it matters. You explain how you are giving feedback to your agents as to what it should write or how it should write when.
Yeah.
Are we already at the stage where it's writing the emails and sending them, or are you still building this out?
It's not writing them yet. So I'm working on it now. Like I'm training it on what a good email looks like. Again, not on what Trigify and the value that it can provide. It can slot that in. Right now, I'm just building out the skill on what does good copywriting look like. Once I've done that, then it's already kind of built end to end. But here's the cool part. Again, this is what I love about Hermes, and this is what I love about what I'm doing at the moment with this type of stuff. Like the same with the content is, guess what? It's going to run fucking tons of experiments. So it's going to experiment with copywriting for me. It's going to create hypotheses. It's going to test them. It's going to then pull on all of the analytics. And the nice thing, what it's doing is it's not just pulling on campaign stats. It will pull on, did that lead reply where it was running X campaign? Yeah. And it should get better and better and better. There's obviously a ceiling, and I'm not going to get 100% reply rate naturally, but it's going to work out what signals works best, what profile works best, what copy works best. And I'm going to get it to a point where I probably optimize the freaking heck out of my outbound, just the pure, like the SDR element of the outbound, to a fine tune. And then the plan is I'll then overlay the call recording data to understand, okay, is there a difference between speaking to a director of a marketing versus a head of sales? With what type of copy did I initially hit them at?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to plug in the website copy, and then it's going to give me, you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah. It's so interesting, because it's like, the first thing you will be optimizing for, obviously, is say like the positive reply rate, the response rate, and so on. But then it doesn't need to stop at just the analytics of how a campaign is performing, because perhaps one thing that your agent would be able to tell you is that campaign B is outperforming campaign A in terms of meetings in the booking, but actually campaign A, despite having a lower positive reply rate and having booked less meeting, is actually closing more revenue, because for some reason, perhaps you had like some copy frameworks which was more effective at getting people on a call. But once these people were on the calls, they were not as qualified as the people that were on the copy. And so like it's really like these subtle things where having like the full picture is very interesting. I think it's similar to the Facebook ad algorithm where, back in the days, but some people, because they wanted to optimize their pixel quicker, they would optimize for the add to cart action instead of them optimizing for the purchase action. And then Facebook was able to find a lot of people that were adding to carts lots of products that would never buy. So like it was actually filling the goal, but it wasn't filling the actual larger goal of the overall business. And this is usually what you have when you look at, say, your Instantly instance. Say you're an SDR, you're like a GTM engineer at a company. You look at all of your campaigns, like the limited information you have is you would be bragging about the response rates, you'd be bragging about how many meetings booked. But then if you actually wanted to know which ones closed, you'd have to send a message to your AEs and then like be back and forth, and then you need to wait for a bit. And all of these take a lot of time. And here, having a system that has all of the context means that you don't even have to optimize for any kind of quality metrics. These help because they help guide the agent toward what's the fastest way to make things work properly. But it doesn't need to optimize for positive reply rate because it can optimize for which of these people that you will be talking with or your team will be talking with will actually close. And so I think it's definitely the future of what should be built. And it's so impressive to see this system being built out in front of our eyes, my eyes.
It's a work in progress. It's not perfect, but it's like, it really is the first time that I'm like really excited. Like, here's the thing, like everyone's waiting for the latest models to drop. AI is clever enough as like, we don't need it to get any smarter. Like, it's smarter than all of us. You ask it a question, it knows everything, right? In theory. The time that we are living in right now is the time of the harnesses. It's not the how smart is the AI. And we're just starting to hit the ground with how good harnesses can get and how it can control AI models. And the memory systems to make it provide context to these agents. We're still at the surface level, and this is why I would strongly encourage anyone to try and get into the game, try and stay up to speed with everything, because I, believe that this is only going to get better, and it's already proving dividends. Listen, me and you both know we're part of many WhatsApp groups. We've done many campaigns in our time. What we do now versus what we did a year ago is probably fucking totally different. And we were probably saying that was gospel 24 months ago. Times change, things roll on. And that's why the system is really important to test things, to try things. Because at the end of the day, no one really has a fucking clue. And we just have to test, create our own hypothesis on what works for our own business, and then learn. And that's the kind of key thing. That's what humans do.
Because really we tend to look at answers outside of our business, but most answers actually lie inside of our own data. It's like you need to optimize what's working for you. It doesn't matter what people say. It can give you ideas, but if you have this like self-evolving system that can continually give you insight as to how to improve every single thing that's happening inside of your business, then you'll win.
Yeah.
Max, I have one question before we do it. Like, this was extremely interesting, by the way. Like, once again, I think people will love it. So thanks for being so generous and sharing all of this knowledge. Let's say I'm someone who is just getting started with all of this. I want to know which tools I should sort of bet on or learn to make sure that within a year or so I'm actually one of these guys that people listen to when it comes to pushing the boundaries of how to leverage AI for lead generation, whether it's for content or for prospecting. Like, what's the sort of tech stack you'd recommend, and how does that differ to the tech stack you're running at the moment?
So I generally think, like, go give Hermes a try. Like, we can link the video that I did around setting it up, like in the description or whatever. I'm really bullish on it. Now, there may be another thing that comes along the line, but it's the same principle, which is learning how to leverage these agents. OpenClaw, Hermes, they're all relatively the same. Once you understand how these systems work and operate, you can pretty much go over any one and just update it. There's great people to follow in the space around here, like Alex Finn, Finn, is, he's a big advocate of OpenClaw, very keen. Like Matthew Behrman is also another one that I follow. Like, I'm fortunate enough with my own like Twitter feed that it now just like feeds me all of this stuff as well. Like, I'm just living in the developer cycle. And so if you're not on X, I would encourage you to get on there, because that is where all the technical individuals tend to live. And you could maybe use something for like Trigify, or you could just go on X and you could just set up some searches to be monitoring things like Claude Code, OpenClaw, Hermes, all of these different things. If you're just getting started, maybe learn how to use initially like Claude Code or Cowork first in Claude. I would say to get off it. I don't really like Anthropic anymore. It's very buggy. It drops a lot. And I'm a big believer in open source. Like, I want to try all of the different models. We aren't far away from open source models being able to run on like your Mac Mini or your Studio, and it will give you the equal level of intelligence as Opus 4.6 currently, which is the only intelligence that you really need. And then once you can do that, listen, your quid's in, you're running free models 24/7, running 24 hours a day for you, right? So follow those people, get those searches going on Twitter and things like that. Then really start to wrap your head around what you nailed. You nailed it today in today's call, which is how can you provide context to your agents? Like before you start anything, and I say it in the video, think about how can you feed your agent. So you need to feed it a context engine, internal content. So what's going on in your business, and external, what is externally important for your agent to keep abreast of, and then create that knowledge repository. Once you have that, your kind of quids in. In terms of tech stack, Hermes obviously is like the harness. I think is very interesting. I obviously do use Codex. Codex is my number one coding tool. I also use Claude Code as well. I vary. Nothing's changed from our last chat. Claude Code is more for front end based, easier tasks. Codex for heavier architectural work. I use Hermes for automations, crons, sequences, whatever you want to call. But if you didn't want to use Hermes, I also use another tool called trigger.dev. So that is basically like N8N. It's like a system that helps you do like a sequential events, essentially, is probably the easiest way to put it. So you could say start here, then go there, then go here. Then you want to think about your typical, right? Your data tools. So Trigify obviously is good for social. Then you've got like Lead Magic, Surf, of big fans of as well. There's tons there. Really pick your poison. Your email sequencing tools. So things that can then connect into the ecosystem. If you're running like a SaaS product or anything like that, you need to think about like the database that you're using. Typically, most people will use Supabase, so we use Supabase. We use Posthog because, again, we can pull information from there. And then you got to think about your CRM. What is very friendly to use to kind of have as like that layer again of context. So pulling emails, pulling events that are happening, contracts, engagements, things like that can factor in. We use Attio personally, but again, just make sure that whatever you're using is API friendly. And then last but not least, I think call recordings is incredibly important. So Fireflies is one that I use. I also use Granola as well. I might be fully switching to Granola soon. We'll see. I've actually built my own version of Granola, so I might just use that.
Does Granola have the video?
Granola doesn't have video from what I understand, but I haven't really played around with it too much. I've just been using it ad hoc for some calls, for like Slack calls. It's like where I use it at the moment. That's why I really like it, because the internal conversations that we have with our team, that's where the gold lives, and that's where the most amount of context lives. And you need to give your agent that context, because that's what separates from okay to being like, fuck, this is excellent. Like, this knows me. This knows my business. This has everything. And so that's what you need to think about. So yeah, I mean, really with tech stack, just think about how can you feed it as much info as possible from a context level.
I love it. I think also I saw that you were using the Warp terminal.
True. Sorry, Warp terminal to control Hermes from. I use Discord as well as Slack. And then I use Obsidian for to help me with the memory layer. And then you got things like all the CLIs now, right? So there's a big thing between MCPs and CLIs. So again, for context, just a quick summary. The issue with an MCP is it's really, really good, but like it injects tons of content or context into the agent on how to use the API. And so you get like bloat that happens because you have like session limits and things like that. Whereas a CLI is like, there's nothing that gets injected. So you just create a skill so it knows how to use the API, and therefore you can control the context bloat. So that's the quick, without getting too technical, difference between the two.
Perfect. Amazing. Max, before we end this conversation, if you had one last tip for people who want to get started. I mean, you said to them like to look at the channel, you give away your tech stack. I don't know if there's like one thing you would want to add.
One last tip is, and I think we've drummed on a lot about this, right? Like context, context, context. The first thing that I would do is I would go to, this is going on YouTube, I'd imagine, go to the YouTube video, go to transcript, copy and paste the entire transcript, paste that into your Hermes and be like, what can I learn from this? What can I get from this? That's all I do, right? It's like, just got to think, this thing needs to be a sponge. I need to sap the web. Now, caveat, important information, not just everything, otherwise it's just pointless. But like, that's the first thing I would do with this call. It's the first thing I would do with our last call, our last video, and the video that we'll also doc on how to set up Hermes as well. So that'll be the tip.
I love it. So if you want to find more content, Max Mitcham on YouTube, on LinkedIn, really follow this guy. He's giving away sauce. Also, like the cool thing about you is that, I mean, somehow because you're running a SaaS and not so like a go-to-market agency anymore, you're really not gating information. You know, it's like somehow us go-to-market agency grows. We obviously try to share as much as possible, but when we have something that's say too edgy, we'll keep it to ourselves. In your case, I feel like you don't give a shit. You just go and deliver all the information. So.
My other theory with all of that is, by the time you catch up with what I've taught you to do, I'll be onto something new.
I feel like by the time people are done implementing your Hermes setup, there will be a new framework library, and you'll be already
I'll be moving on, and that's the game, right? Game of cat and mouse, and you just got to try and join me, trying to implement these things right as they come in.
Well, thanks a lot, Max. I'm pretty sure we'll see you on the next episode because more
just gonna keep doing
about it anyway. So there's always something new to talk about. I wish you a great day. Thanks for all the sauce today.
Cheers, dude.
Bye.